everyone, and welcome to the GO.Live Gaming Podcast on the 22nd of February 2018. We are the show that talks about EA, Bioware, and we mostly focus on Anthem, but on weeks where we can't talk about Anthem, we talk about other stuff, mainly focused on EA and Bioware. So yeah, I'm Saj, also known as Christian, and today I have, apparently on the screen it says Whiskey Zero, also known as Luke, but that's not the case. God damn it, I can never get it right. But we have Josh, also known as Chromatism, with us today. Back, making a comeback since last week.
He remembers my name, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix that. Don't you worry, guys. Alright, so next up we have Drainus back again. You made it back for a second time.
Hey everybody, nice to be back again.
And of course he's also known as James. And we also have our little German kid in on the stream. Haven't changed that picture. Should probably change it someday. Maybe animate a picture. That would be cool. Fancy stuff.
Animated kitten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Animated kittens, man. That's where the money lies.
Let's get where you
All
get
right.
all the views.
Well, I'm of course talking about Patrick. Welcome, man.
Always glad to be here.
Cool. So today we have a couple of interesting topics to talk about. We have played Faye, or Patrick have played Faye, so we're going to talk about Faye today. Or Faye. And we're going to talk about the Burnout Remake, which was announced like yesterday or something like that. That is an interesting one. The Burnout series is very much loved, and people want to see more iterations in that series, but it hasn't really happened so far. But it's nice to see that they're doing something with it. And we're going to talk about the Google console. Just quick mention, because I think that ties into the discussions that we've had previous weeks. And we might hit on loot boxes. I'm just pushing the topic of loot boxes further and further because it's just a Pandora's box that I'm not really sure that I want to open. And a lot of other people have opened it and they have discussed it to oblivion. I don't know what we can add to discussion, but we might get there. One day we might talk about loot boxes.
You need to buy at least 100 of them just to find the right loot box to discuss. I mean, this doesn't really work very well.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't really have the funds, unfortunately, to do that, so we'll just have to see what happens with that in the end. But yeah, the first little thing that we could talk about, I think actually that I want to jump into the Burnout Remake discussion off the bat, and then we can save the juicy details about Faye from Paddock a little bit later. So, Chrome, you're really interested in this one.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Burnout since the very first title, which I purchased on the humble Xbox way back when, and I played very nearly every title in the series. I think I even played Revenge. I think I did. Anyway, the good news is that in the last couple of days, EA have announced that the Burnout Paradise Remastered is coming to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One on March the 6th, I believe, though I've just lost the date. But yeah, it's March the 6th. It's actually that close. And it's very, very exciting. Apparently, and this is according to Eurogamer.net, to give them the credit that they probably duly deserve, is that it will feature a variety of technical enhancements on console, including high-resolution textures and the option to experience Paradise City in 4K at 60 FPS on the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X.
Exciting.
And also, I know. And they also give us the details that it's going to cost about 35 British pounds sterling, or about 40 American dollars, or whatever your equivalent might happen to be. And other little juicy tidbits is that there was a tiny controversy that they've cleared up very quickly, where, believe it or not, that there was a slight misadvertisement. But the outcome is, and there's still a bit of fog surrounding this, there will be no microtransactions in the game. It will come with all 8 DLCs that were released for the original game, including the big island add-on, which the name escapes me, forgive me at the moment. And I think this is rather telling. The only DLC they are not offering was the paid DLC to basically skip a load of the grind to get about 35 different cars and various other bits and bobs. So the only DLC they're not including is the DLC that basically skips the gameplay content. Intriguing, right? I know.
Yeah.
It's, But yeah, it looks very good. Unfortunately, there will be a PC release, but as ever, that's sometime this year. Date to be determined. So
I mean, come on, the PC needs love, man. I'm not
It
entirely
needs
sure
love.
why everybody's, or it feels like that the focus is always on consoles and we PC main guys who main PC. We just have to wait.
Well, it's like I think a lot of people don't appreciate how big the PC market actually is, but at the same time, even though the PC market has a very large piece of the pie, the actual we've got lots of new tech coming out at the moment, and I think the optimization is probably, even though I doubt the PC needs it that much, quite frankly, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of optimization that needs to be done behind the scenes. So
yeah, maybe.
yeah, but yeah, it's very interesting.
It
Yeah,
is.
I followed this series. The remaster, the original game came out 10 years ago, Saj. Almost 10 years and 1 month ago to the day today.
Oh, interesting. I remember actually sitting in my friend had this a separate house on his yard where he lived, and we sat there playing Burnout for, I don't know. I think we almost made it. Like we started somewhere in the afternoon, and I think we quit playing at maybe 6 or 8 a.m.
That sounds like Burnout.
Yeah,
that sounds
yeah.
like
There
Burnout.
was good old times when you could just game all night, had no worries. But yeah,
Oh yeah, those are the days.
hoping to get back in that feeling with this remake, but I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be the case. But
Recapture those old times.
yeah,
Capture those old times. For people not familiar, the reason to be excited about this is that Burnout had a very, very unique style that I don't think any game has really come close to emulating yet. Which was this sort of fishtailing Destructo style. That's what I'm calling it. It was all very boost based, and you earned basically boost. It was very, very stylish. You earned boost and points for undertaking stunts, which might be driving into oncoming traffic, narrowly avoiding people, or my personal favourite, smashing your friends into obstacles, cars, and off cliffs. It was happy fun times.
sounds like
So it was great
Seems
fun.
legit.
It was fantastic. Now, Paradise, there's a little bit of an interesting sort of feeling on this because, as I say, I played through all of them. Paradise was a departure from the series in that it was the first open world Burnout. All the other Burnout games until then they featured sort of very, very well put together sort of tracks that were usually lap based,
Yeah.
whereas Burnout Paradise featured a huge open world city and it had tons and tons of races and things to do, but it was all very linear from point A to point B. So I must admit, and this is a personal preference thing, I'm not as excited about this as a remaster as I might have been, say, for Burnout 3 or Burnout Revenge. You know,
Yeah.
but we're getting Burnout back. And the reason this is a very exciting thing is, as you might be aware, we've not seen it for 10 years. We've not actually seen Burnout for 10 years. Burnout Paradise was the most successful Burnout they've ever brought out. And then it suddenly vanished,
That's
which is
weird.
interesting. But I think I have a theory, and this is purely speculation, in that I don't know if you guys remember. It's not a very popular film series, but there was a very small phenomenon called Fast and Furious. I don't know if you guys have heard about it.
No, I don't know.
Never.
No, it's not ringing a bell.
Did they even make a second or third one? It was just one, right?
I don't know. I'm not sure it did well enough for that, but
Nah.
you know, as it happens though, the Need for Speed series, which is also a very old series, I remember playing Need for Speed 2 in 1999, and I can actually go back to the year because I enjoyed it that much. It was much more simple then, but the Need for Speed series has
Simpler times.
evolved a lot. Yeah, it's evolved a lot in those times. And basically, it took the Nitro aspect from Fast and Furious. It basically wanted to become Fast and Furious, the video game, in everything but name, pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, however, as it evolved, the way it did that is it took a lot of features from Burnout. So I think, and here's the speculation, is that by the time that Burnout Paradise came along, suddenly you have got Burnout Paradise and Need for Speed, two games riffing on very much the same theme, and EA suddenly got a problem on its hands where it's got two competing game series in its own library.
Yeah.
Which I think is why, even though Burnout Paradise was so successful, they pushed it to the side.
Yeah.
Now, things have happened lately. Things have happened, and we won't go into too many specifics, but the recent Need for Speed didn't do quite as well, and I think it's a genius plan on EA's part to bring the Burnout name back at this moment. It's brilliant. Perfect timing for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very pleased.
Yeah, man, I agree. And I feel like it's been quite long since we've had these more silly, I'm going to call them silly,
Yes.
car racing games. We have had a couple of them over the years, like Carmageddon and those over the top where you can just blow each other to pieces. But this is a totally different beast, in my opinion. And they're always a lot of fun. And I feel like there's been a gap in the market, but that might be because I don't know, the developers or whoever controls these kind of things might have spotted a like oversaturation of those games. We had quite a lot of those games at a certain time, and now it feels like, yeah, I agree. It feels like a really good time to bring that back and see how it does, and potentially we might even see more of those games in the future.
I'm thrilled.
Yeah, we had one title that the name escapes me.
I can do this for you, Saj. I've got this one. It's called Onrush. Though there is a subtitle which I also can't do now. Oh
yeah, it wasn't that one that I was thinking about. It was an older title right now, but we're going to talk a little bit or mention Onrush because that just proves what I'm talking about. But let's see here. I don't remember. There was a couple of years ago. There was a similar title released, and that game just, as you might expect, as I can't even remember the title of the game, it just disappeared from everybody's radar, and it didn't really become anything. And I think there's been a couple of tries the last couple of years, and it's never really amounted to anything really. But yeah. And yeah, Onrush is another one that it isn't EA or Bioware related, but it still sort of ties into this discussion. So, Josh, hit it away.
Yeah, it's very much in the same genre, though it definitely has its own unique twists. If anybody was a Sony PlayStation boy back in the PS3 era, or I believe PSP, it might have been on the Vita, there was a fantastic racing game that was Sony exclusive called MotorStorm. And it was very much about sort of taking down your mates and doing quite a lot of the stuff, boosting quite a lot of the stuff you do in Burnout. It had some very...
Sorry, Josh. Just yeah. There might have been a reason why I didn't remember the title. The game was called Next Car Game. What?
No.
That might have been the worst title I've ever seen. All right,
very
creative. All right.
Who thought that?
Yeah. All right, Josh, sorry for interrupting there.
It's all right. But it did a few things differently. MotorStorm was a game that was all about off-road sort of car versus nature, but the things it did very differently was it had multiple car classes, and it had terrain deformation. And that actually completely changed the way the game worked. It was on a very good physics engine. So, in other words, if you were on a bike and you were following along a truck, you went into mud, well, suddenly you're a bit stuffed, because if you're in that truck's treads, you're losing control of the bike. So there was a lot of really interesting stuff that happened, and then later on they brought in sort of, well, why not go nuts and drive into the eye of a hurricane, or, off a glacier or something? Because why not? Why not? It's a game, let's have some fun with it. But the point is that the MotorStorm devs are doing this Onrush game, and it's being published by Codemasters. And I am also very, very excited to see them bring this to a wider audience, because I don't think MotorStorm would have hit the vast majority of people at that time. So it's something to look forward to. And this, I didn't realize it was so soon. It's coming out on June the 5th on PS4 and Xbox One. And yet again, it's coming to PC at some point this year.
Yes. So that's a cool mention. And I really recommend you guys going and checking out the trailer for Onrush yourselves, because it's really epic. And the camera work and the impact of the scenes, it's really over the top, and I recommend it. You just feel the impact of the gameplay. I hope they manage to at least on par of 50% of the impact that the trailer has, that the game I'm hoping that the game could have that in the end. If it has that, I think it's going to be a really enjoyable experience.
Actually, just a small detail about the trailer is that they claim, obviously this is their claim, that the actual trailer, although it's scripted, it was captured all in game. That was actually gameplay footage.
I expect that, but then again, with a good camera work and effects and whatever, you can make almost anything look ridiculously epic. So yeah.
Here's hoping.
You know what that game reminds me of? That game reminds me of a game called Split Second, I think it was.
All
It
right.
was out on the 360, may have been out on the PS3, may not have been, but it very much looks to be that sort of same sort of genre. It's very much racing game, but the destructible environments and the fact that all the cars can very spectacularly explode is a very prominent feature in the game, and it just that trailer very much reminded me of Split Second, which is a fantastic game, and I wish I still had it.
Yeah, it's actually on the Xbox 360. You're right in that.
All right. All right, interesting. So that's Burnout Paradise. Is it remake or remaster? What
It
are
is
we
a
calling it?
remaster.
Om du har en bra affärsidé,
The Burnout Paradise thing. Yeah, it's a full remaster. Actually, I'm going to be perfectly honest as well. When it comes to PC, PC players are probably not going to see a massive amount of difference because they could already crank it up quite high. But it's more of a, I think it's more of a full console thing more than anything else. This one, so
yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
Yay, an old game that we all loved with massive loading times. If Crash Bandicoot is anything to go by.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, hopefully not. But that brings me into a little bit of a discussion that I want us to have before we jump over to the next topic, and that is actually sort of remakes, just from the top of your guys' head, of what you would like to see, especially maybe from Bioware, let's say, or EA, because I think there's a lot of titles that have the potential to be a really good title to do a remake or a remaster of. And I guess you just have to have the right timing for it to be released. But Patrick, what do you say? Do you have a specific one that you really want to see?
Yeah, I have two. The first would be definitely Mass Effect 1. It didn't age that well. It has a lot of mechanics that they did better in the second Mass Effect title. They can up the visuals quite a bit, remove the film grain and that sort of stuff. And the second one would be Dragon Age 2, because I think Dragon Age Origins doesn't really need to be remade. It may has some old graphics, but the game is great. Dragon Age 2, on the other hand, has a lot of problems, which are, I think, easily fixable, like the repeating locations you have in the game that are like 10 times the same place. So that would be the two games that I would remake if I had the chance.
Yeah, the scale of Dragon Age 2 overall was quite underwhelming when you played Origins first. But yeah, I don't really know, but yeah, Dragon Age Origins certainly holds up, I would guess. It would be interesting to see like a graphical overhaul of the game to get it up to modern standards. But I feel like I don't know why, but in my head it makes more sense for a Mass Effect 1 remake than a Dragon Age Origins remake.
I agree.
Absolutely. The Mass Effect 1 game with the Mass Effect 3 textures, skins, and HUD would just be incredible.
And the Mass Effect Andromeda facial animations.
God, you nailed it, Saz. They need to hire you. Stat.
Maybe.
Maybe. Just a
also
maybe.
for the script writing. Also need the script writing in there too.
Solid script writing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've literally seen 10-year-olds that can't do script writing as good as that.
I think it would be really interesting to go back to the old Battlefront games and have them remade to see how they would stand up to the current releases of that franchise.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia there, so I'm not entirely sure how that colors the facts of the mechanics. The mechanics might be totally outdated, but it would be interesting to get that. Now, I don't think that the interesting, like, I don't think that's enough for it to actually happen, but I would want it. I certainly would want it.
A Battlefront game without loot boxes. Doesn't seem right.
What year is this? I don't understand.
No, I don't really know either.
Anyway, yeah.
All right.
I'd like to just chip in with one very quickly.
Yeah,
sure,
One,
man.
and it's not one that I would like to see necessarily because it's actually been announced very recently that it is happening, and that is Spyro. They're bringing
Yes.
back Spyro.
Mm,
You have no
thank
idea how
you.
happy this makes me.
Yes. Such a good series.
In
Though he
some
does look a bit,
games,
he does look a bit pug-nosed again, though, and I'm not entirely happy about that.
yeah, okay, I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
But then again, the original character model just had so much charm to it,
That's true.
even though you could literally count the polygons.
Yeah. And if I could chip in very quickly with a couple, one of which is also already being redone, is that the Neverwinter Nights remaster is coming very, very soon, I believe.
Ooh.
And it's what amazes me is it's going to be compatible with the majority of nearly all the mods that were created for the original. So
Oh, really?
that's very nice.
Is it still going to be that top-down?
Yeah, it's just a remaster. It's not a remake as such. So
right. Yeah.
so it's still going to be very much that sort of Bioware Baldur's Gate, but in 3D feel.
Yeah.
And the other title I would love to see remade because it was so bloody good and deserved a wider audience, I think, is BioWare's RPG Jade Empire.
I didn't play
Which-
that one.
Any of you guys play that one?
Yeah, I did.
Nice.
Very
good
amazing.
Yes. It's a bit more niche. I don't know why. It came out around the same time as... No, it didn't come out at the same time as Star Wars The Old Republic. Or did it come out at the same time as Star Wars The Knights of the Old Republic? I can't remember. But either way, it's... Yeah, I can't find the dates at the minute. It's a fantastic... It's sort of a kung fu martial arts RPG with a really amazing system where you could actually switch your martial arts styles in combat. It's still very, very much an RPG, and it still had the whole good versus evil slidey thingy that Bioware loved to do at the time. But the actual story behind it and how alive the world felt for the time was absolutely amazing, and I'd love to see it remade.
That reminds me, Jedi Outcasts and Jedi Academy. Star Wars
yeah.
Jedi Academy.
Love
Those-
those.
Yeah, those titles were great, man. Jedi.
The saber combat.
Yeah,
Jedi power battles.
Yeah, the Outcast ones in the multiplayer. We actually, me and one of my closest friends, we played the. I don't know. I'm not gonna swear, but I want to swear out of that, because there was something so just the skill element to that was so well crafted. I'm not entirely sure if it was intentional or not, but the combat was surprisingly well crafted when it came to skill. So we who played all the time, if there was like a random noob jumping in trying to interrupt our duels where we were trying to get better, we just like, okay, you handle him, and we go in one stab and he's dead, and then we continue. Like that was literally the case, and it was that game had, at least from my nostalgic memory of it, had an impact on the when it came to multiplayer that I haven't really experienced since. Like the third person melee, fast jumping around melee combat isn't really something that is done in that sense.
It had a shockingly high skill ceiling when you
It
really
did.
dug into it.
Did.
But yeah, also interrupting your duels, force push him in, have the other guy flip the switch on the carbonite chamber. There you go, sorted.
Yeah. Oh, those guys go. Oh, and also Jedi Academy, which introduced a lot more variety when it came to weapons and so on.
Yeah, story wasn't as strong, but the combat was fantastic.
Yeah, certainly was.
Speaking of good fun combat, can I make a case for Unreal Tournament 2004?
Yes. Oh god. Ooh, brilliant. Perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was such a good arena shooter. Oh, my favorite by far.
Fantastic.
It was.
Oh,
Um,
I'm just imagining Deck 16 right now and Mobius. Oh, yes, please.
A small side note on that before we move over to the next topic. I actually Quake Champions is a game that I can recommend if people haven't checked it out. It's really good. If you have never were into the arena shooter period or genre or whatever, it might be hard to get into at first because it's quite different from all the other games like Overwatch and Counter-Strike and Siege, and it's an entirely different beast. But if you get into it and you get good, there's also the skill ceiling there. It's on a whole different level when it comes to like the fast reactions. Once you get good and you can make these fast, really impressive things in the game, it feels fantastic. So
The movement systems as well. They will.
Yeah.
They're not like anything else you've ever played. If you've not played a Quake Arena shooter, they are very, very unique.
yeah, they certainly are. All right, that's enough about that. So I want to move over to Faye, which we talked about last week. The game was released, and so far it's only one of us has gotten their hands on it. Hopefully next week I have played through it as well, and I can give my opinions. But first off, we have Patrick, who has actually played the game, and he's going to give his opinions on it for us. So.
Yeah, so I invested like 7 hours into the game, and I'm completely through the game. Not 100%, but the story is done for me. And we said last time, I think, that we have some that we were worried about the color palette, and now I can confirm it is actually a little bit of a problem. When you play the game and you go through the areas, they don't seem to differentiate themselves enough from the other places, so you can get lost a lot of time. But you have a map, so it's not too bad. It's just hard
Right.
to find stuff you already passed by and want to collect later. So that's what I wanted to add to the last time.
Yeah,
So,
that's actually something that is a worry of mine, just because of how the design is. I feel like it's going to be hard to spot certain elements, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit hard. The colors of the actual things to collect are different enough. You have shards that we will later see that have a pink tone to them, and you can spot them almost everywhere on the map if they are not too well hidden. But there's also another collectible the footage won't show. That's a little bit harder to find because it really blends in. And due to the game not really telling you this, you may miss the opportunity to get those collectibles. They are part of the story. They are stones on the wall, and they are shining in a little bit. But they're the same color as the walls themselves. And if you howl at them, they will reveal a picture, and the pictures together give some kind of story progression or what happened in the past.
So
What
are
you
these
guys-
are these essential for your progression through the game, or are they like?
No, they're completely optional.
All right.
But I do have to say, I think that you should collect all of them because I played through it and I didn't get the ending.
Oh.
Just as a quick note,
Right.
I saw the ending and I didn't really get it.
All right.
But what do you guys think of this passive storytelling? We have mostly games that actually tell the story through a narrative path, and this game is more like you can choose to invest into the story, or you can just go the path, but like me, doesn't really understand the ending to it. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's not usually my cup of tea. Like, just for an example, when books or movies end on a note where you're like, haha, you'll have to figure this one out yourself. I hate those. So I am one who enjoys like being fed the story and not having to actually work for it too much. That said, being a lore nerd in World of Warcraft, that totally goes against my argument. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure that I'm a big fan of how that sounds. But then again, I haven't gotten my hands on the games yet, so we'll see how I feel about it once I actually play it.
Yeah, from the storytelling perspective, there are actually three kind of mechanics. You have the those pictures I just talked about. You have the main quest line or main objectives. You don't really get quests because none of the animals actually talk. And the third one are some kind of orbs which show you a perspective of the game, which we'll later on, where you get another view on the world itself from a different being.
All right.
And
Okay.
I think though the aspects are fine how they want to tell you the story. I think how they went through it wasn't really that great because I didn't get the ending. I didn't even know you can interact with those stones because the game really didn't told me. That's
Alright.
another kind of problem it has, which in some cases can work to its benefit, but also to its detriment. Is the game really doesn't hold your hand, not at all. It tells you like the abilities you learn, how to use them, but it doesn't tell you with what you can interact, with what you can't interact, and it doesn't really. Some of the hints aren't really clear. You see, sometimes I'm trying to communicate with the animals, and the very first hint I got was to move my mouse up and down, but it showed the entire time up and down and up and down. But that isn't what you actually should do. You should match the tone of the animal you're trying to control, and that's really fine-tuning this note they want to hear.
So actually, if I could just talk about that, just to bring this down, just down just a little bit. So just explain to me the core concept behind, well, Fia, Fey, whatever it's called. So you are a little Fey creature, and basically you interact with the world by singing, don't you? You actually sing
Yeah.
notes to interact with the world. So is it like would you describe it as like a Metroidvania exploration puzzle game? Because that's kind of what it looks like.
I wanted to say the exact same thing. It feels a little bit of Metroidvania in a way. You have a bit. It's almost an open world, but it's a linear progression through the world by the abilities you get, and every ability you get enhances the way you move throughout the world,
All right.
and gives you more possibilities to get to places like Super Metroid or the 3D Metroids. That's
Yeah,
a
sounds-
good comparison.
Yeah,
And
didn't they do that? Did the same thing in like Ori and the Blind Forest? Didn't they give you additional mechanics? That you like Metroid as well? The
yeah,
that,
Castlevania, Metroid, Hollow
Yeah.
Knight, yeah.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
it.
Ori and the Blind Forest is one of those.
yeah,
the game itself feels more like I don't know if you guys played this Unravel, Limbo, or Inside.
Yeah.
I think
Good
it,
games.
it has some kind of that vibe to it because your character is defenseless. There are actually, I don't know if I mentioned this or if it's common knowledge, there are actually enemies in the game.
Right.
And
We see them on the screen right now on the
yeah,
stream.
and you can't do anything about them. So you mostly sneak past them and or just try to distract them and get around to your objective. And what these creatures are, you have to find out yourself. That's one of the main story lines in the game. And now you're also gonna see the third way how storytelling is done through orbs, which I talked about briefly.
Yeah.
And yeah, the game is marketed as an action adventure jump and run, and I think that's a fair assessment because the most fun thing in the game is the exploration part, getting to jump around in the world, getting new abilities to move more freely, and kind of doing your own way of moving about the world.
Yeah.
And the some people call it platformer at first. I thought it was some kind of platformer. Those aspects are really weak in the game.
Right.
There are no real challenges to the platforming itself. It's mostly the world as an awe factor, and you're moving throughout it. And this is also there's also another thing that I quite like about it. I think you only need the first 2 abilities in the game to complete the entire game. I think those are the only ones necessary. You get, I think, 6 or 7 of them. And you also need every single language of the animals that inhabit this world. And so every extra ability you get is just giving you an option to move how you want to in the world. So the puzzles are always made with those 2 mechanics in mind. The one is tree climbing, which I showed in the footage, and the other one you get soon after. And those 2 mechanics are the only ones necessary to get from to every place, and all the other ones just make it more interesting or more personal how you play the game.
All right.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to your general feelings of the game, I know that when we talked about the game when you played it through the first time, you didn't really get it, but I guess that was because of you not getting the story and not going in with the right expectations.
It was definitely going in with the wrong expectations. At first you only can move about and jump, and this is kind of limiting. So you think it's more, like I said, a platforming game or some sort of that, and you don't really get a reward for platforming because it's easy and there are not many things to do or huge puzzles. But when I went in the second time, knowing how large the world, how beautiful the world is, and how you can move at your own pace in your own path, then the game really hit me. At first, I wanted to give it an okay rating like IGN. I actually changed that. It's now like a secret tip, the game, or a good, because going in with the new mindset of exploring and doing my own thing in the world really opened up the game. I suddenly played for like 3 hours without even noticing. And moving about. The only downtime you then have is the combat, in quotations, sections where you just wait and hide.
All right.
Patrick, if I can ask, how did you feel the color palette reacted to the way you were playing the game? I know before the game came out, there was a lot of talk about the color palette being almost very monochrome. It was very much in the blues and the purples, and it wasn't to everyone's taste. How did it grow on you?
It has its charm, but I think the downsides outweigh their decision in making it so monochrome. I would have given it a little bit more color. To elaborate on that, so you have mostly, like you said, blue tones. There are some green tones. Every specific main area that you will land on has a different tone all over it. So there's slightly more green bluish tone area, so you can differentiate them, but they are definitely a perspective. And so your own color also changes with the different languages you learn from the animals. So that's quite nice because you can differentiate yourself from the environment. But there are some problems I don't think they accounted for. There's always a red fog where enemies are at. So you can definitely tell you're in hostile environment. And this doesn't change even if the enemies are gone. So it always feels like you're in hostile territory, even though it's completely peaceful.
All right. How does it feel when you encounter the enemies? Does it feel like it adds something to the experience, or is it just like an annoying obstacle to get through?
It's a bit gradual. At first, it was terrifying, to be honest. I
Yeah.
had my sound quite high, so they really scared me, and I was intrigued on how they will elaborate on the type of enemy you have.
Yeah.
Even though this didn't really happen, then it became kind of a chore. If in the That's still in the beginning, because it's really just wait and let them move in their pattern and then keep on going ahead. So it was just a wait time. But when I moved some kind of in the middle part, when I finally got that down with moving in my own path, it got a little bit more experimental. So I choose to tackle the objectives like I wanted to.
Yeah.
Then it got boring again.
All right. So
So-
it sort of
Sorry, go.
forces you to play in a certain way.
Yeah, that's the problem. If it forces you, it gets annoying. If you can choose your own path, it really gets going.
So it
Alright.
sounds like there's a bit of a dichotomy between the freedom that the additional powers give you and then being
Yes.
forced into a situation. So I'm curious then, is there actually any dialogue in the game at all, without spoilers, obviously?
Dialogue from the game itself, not really. Only as in form of hints.
Oh, that's fair enough. Okay. So when you're actually playing the game, for somebody like me, I'm not. It sounds like it's an excuse. Well, not an excuse. It sounds like they're trying to push you into the world and say, go and explore and do your own thing, which is
Yeah.
nice. But in your opinion, then, how much gameplay is there to just wandering around? I mean, would you say it veers into, dare I say it, walking simulator territory, or would you say it's a proper game? I know that's a terrible comparison, but you get what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean. From the footage you don't see, which I cut out, I definitely wandered around quite a bit because I thought in the beginning there is actually something, but when you get into the mindset of I need to explain another mechanic for this. You get a helpful bird which points you where you could go, but you don't need to use it. And the game specifically tells you how to use it and what it does. So if you get the bird and also use the waypoints, there's not really aimless wandering. It's more like how do I get to the objective? You just it could be become a walking simulator if you're trying to find everything on your first try. So if you
Alright.
look in every nook and cranny.
Okay.
And another thing that hinders the gameplay are not only the enemies. You saw in the footage the reindeer type of animal.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit sad, but if you actually ride on it, the jumping scenes that it does are like scripted, so it chooses its own path. So some animals remove more from your kit than they add to it.
I see.
Alright.
So it sounds like it's a game that isn't entirely sure of its own identity, then, in a way. Perhaps.
I don't think it has an identity problem. I think as an action adventure, it really gets its point across. You just
Okay.
need to get into that mindset.
Alright.
Things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they can learn a lot from the game if they actually take some feedback, because it may be not a perfect game, but it's really a good niche game for some people who like relaxing games.
It's an experience, it sounds
It's
like.
definitely experience.
Yeah, but that seems to be in par with the reviews I've checked out of the game, because some of reviewers as just okay, some say that it's excellent, and some are in between. And I feel like it's really a game where you have to go in with the right expectations. You sort of need to know what you're going to get, and how to tackle the different systems in the game. Is there some sort of tutorial at all, or is like you have to try everything out in order to learn how the game actually works?
The tutorial is kept to a minimum. You learn how to communicate with animals a bit. every new ability you learn, you get a text position which tells you how it works, but everything in between is not told to you at all. There were parts in the beginning where I saw stuff and I thought I could interact with it somehow, and wasted like 20 minutes not knowing I can't because the game didn't tell me. So you have you often have some kind of thing where you think you can do something, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's for later purposes.
I feel like it sounds a little bit like I feel like in the past a solution to that issue has actually been you start off like with more powers and then something happens and then you lose those, so that in the beginning of the game you actually
Yeah.
can try out the different powers and you can interact with the environment and learn how that works, and then something happens and you get sort of roll back
You
to
trip
zero.
up, and all your power-ups go down the grid.
Yeah,
the
but
typical Metroid approach.
Yes.
That would
yeah,
be kind
exactly.
of that would be kind of the right thing to do, so that they show you which you now can and can't interact with.
Right.
That I didn't actually thought about. That would have been nice.
Yeah, but it's good now that I know, since I'm probably going to, or I'm gonna try my best to get my hands on the game for next week, and we can
Yeah, and-
continue
Sounds
the discussion then, I think.
Yeah, there's just a little thing I just want to say. For
Sure.
the people who didn't see the trailer and only saw our footage, I would not look at the trailer, because I think it spoils a little part which detracts from the awe factor of the game. There's a scene in it which you really shouldn't know before getting into the game, and so if you still want to play it, don't watch the trailer. Maybe watch the footage we had, and or go completely blind into the game.
I feel like that's a common issue. I like there's some companies that do like movie trailers and game trailers, right? But most of them, like for especially if we go into Deadpool. I was going to use that as an example because that's awesome. It's like a little sketch that gets you hyped for the actual movie, but it doesn't spoil too much. It basically says like, this is the villain, and I'm Deadpool, and I like to mess around. And that's
succeeded.
it really sets the tone for the movie itself, and that works great. But some movie trailers are just like, all right, we start off here, and then we go over to this island, and there's like this big monkey, and this monkey goes crazy, and we take the monkey over to a big city, and it goes crazy again. Guess what happens? Yeah, it's probably going to be the same kind of story that you've seen 1,000 times before, but you've already been spoiled, so you don't have to see it now. Congratulations.
And the sad part is, that actually brings more people into the cinema than the other type of trailer. Shockingly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true.
Might,
It's
yeah, I don't have any actual
It
numbers
gives them
on
all
that.
the
either.
action. It gives them all of the drama, the excitement.
Yeah.
And then they're sort of going in and expecting it to deliver yet more of the same, and it just
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's also the problem with Faye. The main focus is the world, and what do they show in the trailer? A huge part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I don't know. Some people need to learn more about it. But then again, if what you say is right, Josh, then maybe that is the way to make trailers. But I, for one, like my experiences not to be spoiled before I actually go into them. But I actually want some information beforehand, so it's a conundrum.
I agree. It just turns out that a lot of people like to know what they're sitting down, like to know completely what they're going to sit down to watch before they sit down and watch it or play it. It's a very bizarre situation, but I'm with you on that one personally.
Yeah, I would have actually have a suggestion for the if they wanted to make a trailer for the game. There's a main hub, you can call it, where you are at most of the time and where you get your abilities. If you would have just showcased what you can do in the game in this hub, you wouldn't have actually spoiled much, because it's like 40 minutes into the game, then you are at the hub.
All right.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, before we move over to the last segment, I just want to touch on one of our topics this week, which is the Google console. We don't have a new, we have the Google Yeti is apparently the name of it.
Yeti.
Yeti or however we want to pronounce it. We have these discussions every once in a while. How do you actually pronounce stuff? But then again, some people are American and some are British and some are Swedish and some are German. So it's always going to be different. But yeah, the Yeti itself is going to be a system where you download free games. So it's going to be subscription based, and it's also going to be streaming based. So you like download the games in real time. I guess we've touched upon this topic the last 2 episodes as well. We talked about Utomic and we talked about the NVIDIA. Josh, help me. NVIDIA.
Streaming
service.
It was NVIDIA. It was linked to the NVIDIA Shield, and I can't remember what the name was, but NVIDIA's own streaming cloud-based service that they want to sort out. Yes.
Yeah, we'll probably remember it before the show.
It up.
Yeah,
Right.
look it up. Thank you, man. But the console itself is going to be subscription based, as I said. What it's actually going to offer that is going to be all right. Yeah.
GeForce Now.
Yeah, that's what it's going.
There you go.
All right. Cool.
Carry on.
There has been some comparisons to the Ouya or however
See,
you want to.
I think it's the Ouya. I
Ouya.
can't believe we're having this
Ouya.
switch around there.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And that that service had its issues and it didn't really take off as it wanted to. But then again, the backers or the creators weren't Google, which is basically one of the biggest companies in the world. So we're going to see how they are going to tackle this little console machine. It's going. My guess is, since they have a lot of Android devices, is that maybe it's going to be Android based, and maybe we're going to see titles that would come out on the Android platforms come out on this service as well, and you can just have it more dedicated and actually on your TV, which I guess would be interesting for people. But it's still going to be like any company that tries to get into the gaming industry and the gaming market nowadays, it's going to be hard for them, I think, to find interesting titles to go along with the actual service. So we're just going to have to see if they're going to niche themselves towards maybe some casual titles, or if maybe we're going to see a lot of great old titles like Utomic, for example, had a lot of great old titles that you actually could play on that device. So we're going to see how that is going to be played out. And also, it's interesting to have it streaming based. It seems like we're seeing more and more examples of that actually happening. But I'm still of the opinion of like input lag being an issue. So
yeah. I just don't see it. I really don't, especially for. I know I don't think this is targeting the AAA market, but when it comes to especially the other things we've touched on the PS5. I think you guys touched on that last week, and a new Xbox console, which are rumored to be streaming based. I'm thinking, well, the average network speed of most people around the world, it just doesn't support this yet at all.
yeah,
I'm not seeing it. And also, I think the other problem that the Google console could have is if I think this might be mentioned somewhere, but if they're going to pull games specifically from their Play Store, and this is the sort of stuff you can see, well, curation's going to be an absolute nightmare, because that's a free-for-all on there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be worse than Steam right now, and Steam's not in a good place. It's going to be
No.
more like the Windows 10 store. Yeah.
That's harsh. That's really harsh.
It's true.
I don't know.
though.
Even if you try, I think it's hard to get on the Windows Store level of just being crappy.
Can I just ask, for consoles that are streaming consoles,
Yeah.
what hardware are you purchasing? A controller
And basically
an
just,
adapter?
yeah, like a little box that you plug into your TV and your Ethernet.
Something that can process the data coming in, so it's going to be a low-powered CPU and something that can display the output.
Yeah.
Unless it's got additional storage, that's pretty much it. So it would be more powerful if you could download apps onto your console. But if it's just purely streaming, then no, you wouldn't need much in the way of hardware at all,
Yeah.
really.
And since the service itself is going to be subscription-based, I guess the entry cost wouldn't be too high either. So it's certainly interesting to see how and if these kinds of models are actually going to be anything that is going to be viable. But I certainly welcome the change because it's interesting. It's being sort of compared to PlayStation Now, and I guess the Game Pass is sort of comparable as well. We have the Atomic, and we have GeForce Now, so there's a lot of things coming on the market right now. That is, I don't know.
Interesting times, isn't it?
I mean, I side with Chrome on this. My biggest fear with all of this is bandwidth. It's just such an obstacle for so
I'm
many
sitting
parts of the
here in
world.
my bad bandwidth corner.
Yeah, but I feel like
we can't all be in Sweden.
It's true.
well, you could be. You just choose to not be.
Move to Sweden.
You don't want all the gamers in Sweden, Sarge. It would be a nightmare.
I would choose to say I chose to go someplace warmer, but unfortunately my boiler's broke at the moment. It's freezing here.
Wow.
I can say that Britain and Sweden are not that different when it comes to weather. At least if I live like in the south part of Sweden, it's basically no difference. If you go to the north part of Sweden, you're gonna have like snow in the middle of the summer, but that's
fun.
How much snow have you got on the ground at the moment, Sarge?
Nothing.
Damn. That's my argument.
Yeah, it does snow like all the time here. It does, but it never
Sweden
lands.
It's a little bit bigger than you might think, actually, if you look it up.
Yeah, the landmass of Sweden is like, the country itself is huge, but we don't have the population like we have. We have less the population in the entire country than London has a population as a city. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Having driven across it, I can say, yes, it's really big.
No wonder you don't need to share your bandwidth. That's what it's all about. You're hogging it all to yourself.
Yeah. It probably is that. I don't know. But yeah, so that's an interesting one, and we're going to have to keep our eyes out for that one. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be viable or not, but hey, I'm interested. They've piqued my interest. And that's actually it for the first segment of the show. Thanks to Patrick for that little review, and I'm going to give my opinions on Faye next week, as I said. Also, I want to give a quick little shout out here before we go to the next segment. If you enjoy what we do, if you want to be a part of the show, if you want to give input, if you just want to say hi, I exist, then please give us an email to feedback@gunsofanthem.com. That's feedback, FEEDBACK, @gunsofanthem.com. That would be great. I want some emails that I can interact with you guys with. That was a weird sentence, but all right. Let's move over to the last segment, which is called Tell Me, or Please Tell Me What to Do Until Next Week. And in this segment, we give you guys something to use, something to maybe eat. I don't know what these guys are going to come up with. Maybe something that's
stretching the horizons.
Yeah. Maybe something that you can utilize while you're, to go back to the snow example, skiing. I don't know. We'll just have to see what these guys come up with. And this time around, it would be interesting if we could actually start with Josh. I just realized that I haven't actually changed your name on the screen. Hey, you.
I'm Whiskey Zero still. Thank you. I'm Luke
Whiskey
now. I am Luke forever. He is now Josh.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah. Josh, do you have something for us?
Yeah. I do. Yes. Today, Stellaris just came out with its 2.0 Sherry update. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not entirely sure. But it's a fantastic time to jump on board on this galactic strategy 4X real-time game. It's absolutely wonderful. They've effectively overhauled the entire game. They sort of got themselves into a point where they thought, all of this is really good, but we've reached a point where we cannot advance the game. Oh, well, let's just redesign everything. So if you're thinking about jumping on board, it's an excellent place because it just feels incredibly polished. It feels like a lot of the promise that a lot of people wanted about a year ago is finally there. And I highly, highly recommend it. You can lose your life to that game. Just saying, be careful. Be warned.
Be warned.
It's wonderful.
All right. Moving swiftly over to James. Do you have something for us? For some reason, we can't hear you, mate. Did you mute yourself?
Oh, I do apologise.
There we go.
I very much themed mine this week around our earlier discussions about Burnout and the car games of our more youthful times. And it is for those Xbox players. Again, I must admit, Xbox fan favourites. For those Xbox players, on Games for Gold at the moment, we have Crazy Taxi for Xbox arcades. Those of you who may remember playing Crazy Taxi, I certainly did. I can tell Chrome absolutely loves Crazy Taxi.
Oh yeah, it was my favourite game.
I'm so glad to hear it, mate. So glad to hear it.
All right.
If you're not a Crazy Taxi fan, something to do for next week. Go through your old games list. Go back through them. Find stuff that you haven't played in ages. Go back through and enjoy some nostalgia.
That's sound. Yeah.
Good suggestion. All right. Patrick, my man, do you have something for us?
Yeah, play some Fae. And also Overwatch is, I think, 50% off at the moment. So
Right.
for everyone who still doesn't have the game.
Interesting. Good suggestion. I'm actually going to move over from the games path and talk about podcasts. There's 2 podcasts I want to recommend. One is called No Sleep. That's No Sleep written together. And it's a horror podcast, which has a production quality out of this world. It's amazing, and I can really recommend it. And they just released, or the team, or the guys working on No Sleep have just released a new show called Congeria, which is spelled C-O-N-G. Let's see here. I should have just looked this up. It's a weird word. Congeria. Yeah, it's a sound. It's just a C at the beginning. It's really high quality, and I can recommend it really strongly. It's sort of a murder mystery with a lot of turns. Both these shows are quite mature, and there's a lot of disturbing things happening in these stories. So if you don't like that stuff, then and that's not something for you, then you have been warned. But I myself am a horror buff, and I love that stuff. So
is it original content then? It's original sort of stories and stuff.
And they have a couple of stories every week. There's also a paid subscription model where you get like a 2-hour episode every week where you get even more stories, and they're all excellently voice acted, and the audio production is insane, and I can't recommend them enough.
Nifty.
Yeah, you should really check out No Sleep and Congeria. And that's actually it for this time around on the GO.Live Gaming Podcast. If you've been watching the show live, then thank you. The show is also available in audio form over at SoundCloud and iTunes and the podcast app of your choice. And you can find the VOD on our YouTube channel, which is Guns of Anthem After, or like this Saturday. It's probably going to be the audio podcast version is also probably going to be up on Saturday as well. But yeah, that's actually about it. We didn't get any talk down about loot boxes this time around, but maybe next week. Maybe next week.
Maybe next box we open.
Yeah,
maybe the next one will be the one.
Maybe the next one will be the one.
Should I buy a whole stack just in case?
Yeah,
be good.
Or maybe not.
You'll never know.
All right, it's been good talking to you guys, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week as well. Until then,
Absolutely.
Goodbye, everyone.
Cheerio.
Bye.